Hello, welcome to Fields Live. I'm your host, Rogan Smith, on this wonderful, sunny, hot, beautiful Monday evening. I'm here with my co-host, Sasha Lightborn. Candy Thompson's in the studio, and, of course, Kendrick Williams. Good to see you guys.
Hey.
Hola.
What you say? What you say? What you say?
It's hot, that's what.
I know it is.
I feel hot today.
What?
I'm so...
It was a scorcher.
Yeah, the sun ain't playing, buddy.
And I like to drive
And
around
it's
with my
not
window
June.
down. And it's not even June yet. Next week is June.
Yeah, next week is showing.
I don't think I felt
But
hot
if this
today.
is any indication,
That's so
Her.
buddy. I know.
You know, better get your
I
generator.
hope- get your generator one and make sure your house button up from now because they come in. It's just perfect weather.
Oh,
Yeah,
Lord. I hope we don't have, like,
I hope so.
that like an
I
active
really-
hurricane season.
I really hope so,
Didn't
too.
they
We
say
did well
we did?
last year.
Yeah. And the year before, eh?
Yeah.
No. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah,
year before.
yeah.
We
Last
had
2
a
years.
Thing, but it, yeah. Well, Nassau, let me say that.
Yeah.
But don't they say, like, if it's, like, super hot, that's good?
No,
I
super
know,
hot
eh?
is good weather for it.
No, I thought it was, like,
Let's
it's
get
good.
things a brewing.
No. That's like stirring the pot.
Right.
Ready
The
to go.
water is just
Child.
perfect. Everything is just, the conditions are just
It's like a perfect storm.
Mhm.
No, man, but I like it sunny. I like it hot, but I don't
And
like it this
breezy.
hot. But yeah, I need
Yeah,
a
I
little
like
cool
some
breeze.
breeze. Yeah. When was that? Last week sometime. I think it was like the weather switched. It was hot during the day. I think that was a Thursday
Yeah.
last week, and then it got really cool and
That was
breezy.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I don't know where that came from, but
Yeah.
I'll take it.
But you know what? I'll still take like island heat.
No.
Like, have you ever been like in the city, like the U.S. cities when it's hot? Like, I was in New York several years ago, and all you feel, I mean, like, it's like the heat just coming right on your face because there's so much steel and concrete.
Yes.
And there's like no ocean breeze to cool you off. It's like crazy.
Yeah.
But it was a very eventful weekend. Lots of events going on. You had your event, but that was last week, Thursday, eh?
I had a couple of events.
And I
but-
see you on Instagram getting your branding on. It's so
That's
proud
one,
of Candy.
that was one of the events.
I'm so proud of you. You look so
Yeah.
beautiful.
I never had one done.
The
like a
headshots?
pro shot. Yeah.
Really?
Pro headshot. And so I was like, okay, I'm kind of almost 40. Why don't I have a a professional headshot?
Right.
So-
Especially like when you're in business for yourself. Like
exactly.
even when I wasn't in business for myself, like you need to have your headshot. People ask you
They
for
make
your
a
bio.
difference, trust me.
Yeah. They make a
difference.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I was reading something. Sharad is Sasha's brother. For those of you who know,
You know
who
what I
don't know.
I just realized that?
Girls, stop your lie.
No, I shame. I
Yeah.
shame.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Long time.
So
Little
I was
while.
like, my whole life.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
No, but
Oh,
one
34 years.
34 years. But one of the things he was talking about is the fact that you have so many Bahamians, people in general, let me just say Bahamians, who are on like LinkedIn and all these different
Yeah.
professional platforms, and they have pictures, of them, like somebody took a selfie or
Yep.
somebody, took
Yeah.
cropped out the background from the beach or
Yeah.
something like that. It just looks so unprofessional.
Yes.
And
It's time to get professional.
It's time to get professional. So proud of you. And congratulations to Naya Bandelier. She is the new Miss World Bahamas. They had the pageant yesterday, Sunday. And of course, congratulations to all of the girls who participated. It's not easy to take part in a pageant where you're putting yourself out there for the world to judge.
Must be
Especially
very
in the Bahamas.
nerve-wracking. Yeah, tough crowd.
Tough crowd.
I don't know if I've seen a tougher crowd than this Bahamian audience.
I'm sorry, no.
Yeah.
And it don't matter what it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's-
just period.
Just period. We are a tough crowd.
So Sasha, you went.
Why?
Yeah.
How
I
was
went. It was interesting.
Interesting is an interesting word.
It was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I was there in an official capacity, so I don't want to say too much. But it seemed as if the crowd definitely had its favorite. It
Yeah,
seemed as
always
if
does.
even the social media that they were running through on screen, the people who were voting, it seemed as if they had their favorite, and the favorite did not even make the top three.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a lot of commentary, social media and otherwise, about, I think she was Miss New Providence.
Yeah, Jacovia.
Jacovia, I think Moxie.
Mm-hmm.
I think she did pretty well. I expected her. In fact, she was in my top two. I didn't really have a top three because there's only eight of them. So I never had a top three. I was like, okay, these two.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was all about her and Missy Luthra, who did eventually win. But it was I don't know. I'm not a pageant girl. That's not something I grew up watching. I mean, yeah, you know, Miss Universe, blah, blah, blah. But kudos to all of those ladies. The crowd was not easy, especially to come back on stage after you realize that you ain't in the top 3.
Yeah. That's
Buddy,
tough.
I gone.
No, but you have to be a showman.
You don't gotta worry about me.
You gotta be a showman.
See y'all later.
You're just gonna walk off the stage.
If I was gonna walk off the stage and out the door through the back, I was gone, buddy. But I mean, like I said, kudos to all 8 of those ladies. They all were very professional. If they know how to fake it, they faked it well. They had smiles on their face.
Yeah.
They held their poise. They seemed to have really good character, and I guess shout out to the entire organization for putting it all on. It must not be easy. I'm sure it's not easy. But the crowd had its own 2 favorites who didn't even make the top 3.
But listen,
and it seemed really
I don't have an issue with people having their favorites, right? But I think at the end of the day, it's only going to be one winner, okay?
Right.
And so I've never been a fan of people who are like destroying the other girls, tearing them down. Yes, your favorite did not win.
Right.
Okay, and I know you may feel like that's unfair for whatever reason, but I'm not gonna participate. These young ladies are young, and I don't believe in that. Like you don't have to be disgusting.
She's 18.
You don't have to be disgusting about it.
This is how I feel. We don't take pageantry seriously here in the Bahamas. 1. Number 2, the girl.
Validate that in the sense that
this is my honest personal opinion. Based on what I know of pageantry and all the other competitions you watch worldwide, there is no way that in 2 months you get people ready. First point. Second point, I spoke to a lot of some of the people in the organization who've been a part of this Miss Bahamas, have been finalists themselves, and other members of the public who've watched pageantry in the Bahamas grow. We went from like having 20 contestants to 8.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm just saying to myself, okay, this is the Bahamas. That name in and of itself already commands greatness on any international platform. Oh, you from the Bahamas? Blah, blah, blah. It's a conversation starter. We competing with 50, 60 countries. Now, this is where you're going to probably blast me, Rogan. The norm is for her to look like a flamingo. She must be tall. She must be poised. She must be slim, almost like Coca-Cola shaped body, that kind of thing. I believe, in my own personal view, Miss Luthra sort of, I'm not going to say completely, has some of that. But we have to think about pageantry. Well, let me not say even we, because I really am not interested. But I'm just saying, if we want to take it seriously, it has to be a committed team with a committed effort to get these girls not just to the pageant. Are we going to win, or are we just going to say, oh, well, we sent her.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we sent her. Oh, we sent her. We've sent her. And I think they had a lady. They had a clip. I want to tell you the name. The name of the lady is Judy. She would have been probably the only Bahamian finalist, either in a Miss Universe or one of those bigger pageants.
You talking about Riche?
Not Riche. It's
Miss Universe?
It's
Riche
someone else.
France?
Apparently, this person has been the only Bahamian finalist to make either the top 10 or top.
Weech? From out of Bimini years ago.
Yeah, she's from Bimini. Yeah. So they showed a clip of her, and she was tall with beautiful hair. I mean, it was a black and white clip. But I just think that if we're gonna take it seriously, it can't be okay. She won. Now let's get her to.
But let me say this though, I hear your point, right? But I think the world is changing. I had a mini conversation with Branique, who is the outgoing queen. On Instagram, I think, and I said, someone questioned, why did the girls have to be sky high? Why did they have to be tall?
Right.
What purpose? Tell me why does a girl who's in a pageant have to be tall?
And here's the thing, Rogan, I have no problem because I think all of the 3 queens currently reigning in the U.S. from Miss Teen to Miss USA all are black and natural hair and something of that sort. Mm-hmm. So there's clearly an evolution of what a pageant girl should look like, and I'm all for that. Mm-hmm. But I'm just saying, like 2 months before, like they got ready in 2 months.
To me, we're seeing, just as she says, we're seeing more black women stepping to the fore. You're having them winning these pageants.
Right.
You're seeing girls with natural hair,
A little
darker
thicker.
skin, a little thicker. I never understood why the girl has to be 5'10", 5'11",
Venezuela.
why she has
Or
to have.
Colombia.
And let me tell you something. I've been watching pageants when I was young. It used to be a little hidden thing, but it was like hidden in plain sight. You had to be light skinned. You had to be like mango skin if you really wanted to compete with those
Right.
Venezuelans and all that. So the darker beauties were neglected. You could be in the pageant and we already know you ain't a place. You know what I mean? Because they didn't want to send that person. But I don't know why you have to be tall, why you have to have a certain skin tone, why you have to have a certain hair texture. I'd much prefer, this is me, to see someone with natural, beautiful hair than 10 bundles of weave.
Yeah.
Now, if you like your weave, that's cool, but I'm not going to exclude the girl who has 10 bundles, but don't exclude the girl who has natural hair as well.
Well, there was a girl there last night. I want to tell you her name is Miss Crystal Key, and please, this is not too. I really can't remember, but she has a community outreach program called MAD, Making a Difference. She has short hair. She's an educator. I think this is the second.
She had on the Grammy's Kitchen costume. I remember her. Yeah.
She cut her hair, and she was like, in one of the interviews that they played, during the commercial break, she said, your hair doesn't define you. So she broke the mold. She had short hair.
Yeah, I remember
and she
that.
said she
And she
wasn't
stood
gonna
out.
put in weave for the competition because she wanted to show her short hair. Now Jacovia has beautiful, long, natural hair, and it was styled properly. And when she came out for swimsuit, it was styled one way, and when she came out for evening gown, it was styled another way. She's a beautiful girl.
Yeah, she is.
She's a beautiful girl. But I'm just wondering, are we just doing it just to do it, or are we doing it to seriously give these girls, and I'm not even talking about
fighting chance?
a chance, like 2 months, and then I think now that she's won, they'll take a month to get her ready. She'll go to some place and find an elegant gown, and then she'll go to work, come back home, go to work, and then she'll go off to Thailand. I think in November or December. These girls in other countries are doing this from
round.
They walking. They putting them in heels and they're walking. Are we seriously doing it to just do it, or are we doing it
just to have an
But hold
entry?
on.
Yeah.
I think we do want our girls to go international, but I think it really starts with attracting the right caliber of girls to come in. And when I say caliber, I mean intelligence. I'm not talking about height or color or whatever. I'm not talking about that. But somebody who can answer a question on the world stage.
It's a whole package.
It's a total package.
And I can tell that it's a lot of work. So please don't get me wrong, Miss Michelle Malcolm and her entire team. I can understand that they're probably not making any money from it. It must be a labor of love. And you can tell that a lot of work went into it. But at what cost?
But I think you will get that great selection of women, and it is a labor of love for the organization. But the corporate Bahamas needs to buy into it a little bit more, so that you offer those great prizes. There's prize money. There's wonderful prizes that people will want to come into the pageant. There are people who do want to come into the pageant.
Want to put themselves out there like that.
You know how many girls would jump at the chance?
Have a lot of great prizes.
But you know how many girls would jump at the chance if you had like a $30,000 scholarship?
Yeah.
You know there's 30 grand?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Or you have a car?
Is it down
get a
to
car?
the organization?
Yeah.
Like, you got to work
It
a little
is
bit
down
harder.
to the organization, but again, the organization could only ask. The corporate Bahamas needs to buy into it enough to say, I want to give this because I believe so strongly in our Bahamian women, and I want them to go abroad and really do well. So I want to attract the right crop of girls.
But me too, as a corporate sponsor, I don't want to know that this thing is potentially going to be rigged or fixed. Because there was talk about that as well, and I'm just putting it out there. I'm not saying this is my opinion, but for example, let's say that there were 8
Well, then
prizes.
I don't want to say that it's rigged.
Let's say that there were 8 prizes, right? This Miss New Providence, Jacovia Moxie, she won, let's say, and there must have been like 5 or 6. I'm just saying. She won 5 out of 6. She didn't make the top 3.
How did the girls, I wasn't there, so because it's not just about winning the prizes. That's great.
Right.
But how did they perform on stage when the question was asked? Because that, to me, I want to see again. I've seen the beauty, so now let me hear how you respond with the question.
I'll be honest. I wasn't impressed, and that's maybe because I'm a journalist. I know how to put subject-verb agreement together. However, I also know that they did do some level of training. They should be trained to speak on spot no matter what question is placed before you. And I just honestly don't think that the top 6 any of the top 6 answered their questions really well.
Okay. All right.
I'll be honest.
All right.
That's just my view.
So that go
I
ahead.
don't know. I was going to say, not only, we question, well, no, I wouldn't say we're questioning if the organization is serious about,
I think they are.
I think they are, but
yeah.
the contestants need to be serious too. You find that, there are some people who just are not willing to put in the work. I want to ask you, like, why did it go from 20 to 8?
I have no
They
clue.
probably just weren't able to attract the girls. I mean, there are some women who think
But you know what
they
I
don't
mean?
want to
Like,
take part in the
I feel
pageant.
like sometimes some of us don't know, like, aren't willing to put in that work and that discipline, like, because it's a lot of work. These pageants are a lot of work, and then you preparing for yourself, like, on different levels, and some people just I'll get to that.
To all of them, because like Rogan said, it's not easy to get up on that stage.
No,
No
I know.
experience, no model
No, I couldn't
experience,
do it.
probably or very little.
In front of a tough crowd.
In front of a tough crowd, number one. In front of a tough crowd with 2 little pieces of thing which you call a bikini on, and then to come back out to answer questions, to hear people shouting various names for
Why
just
we like
kudos to all
I don't
of them.
Let me
Why
tell you,
we
Candy,
like that?
I
Why we
absolutely
like
detest that. I mean, it's just so tacky
But
to
if
me.
I come for Rogan, I come for Rogan. That's my right. Go Rogan. Go
No,
Rogan.
that's fine for you to say go Rogan,
But
but
if
I don't want
Rogan
you.
don't
I don't.
make it,
I
so
don't,
yeah,
I don't want you to tear down
I'm
other
not
people.
tearing down any other.
That's what
that
I
didn't
witnessed.
happen. That didn't
Okay.
happen.
Oh.
There were big groups of people. For example, there was Miss University of the Bahamas. She had a good section of who am I? I'm assuming our students with the UB mingles and a lot of UB paraphernalia. They were cheering her on. Now I didn't see personally anybody like boo. There was no any.
That's
there
what I've
wasn't
seen
any
in the
of that.
past, and that's what I don't like. So when Candy comes, this big bungy girl going, what she did she going? She got
there
stretch
was-
marks, and
yeah,
I don't
there
like
was-
that
there
sort
was
of
none of
stuff.
that.
So good.
There
I'm
was
happy
none
to
of
hear
that.
that. So yeah, you're free to share for who you want to. We have a few more minutes before we take the break, right? So I wanted to talk about this hotel union going to take a strike vote on Thursday. And the reason they're doing that is because they are looking to eliminate the 15% automatic gratuity. It's something that Bahamians have discussed for a number of years, and they say it's a slap in the face to take this out, and of course to delay payment of their Christmas bonuses in to the second week of January rather than during the Christmas time. And of course, the commentary has been all over the place about this because there are people, of course, who are inside the hotel industry, and they do not want to have this eliminated.
Yeah, because then I get to choose.
You see, but I've said for a number of years, the reason they brought this 15% on is to make sure that the hotel workers got something at the end of the day when they're going home, right? Fine. But what has happened is it's been bastardized in the sense that people don't feel the need to work anymore because they have that 15%. And that's not everybody, because I've seen some people, you're happy to pay that 15% and you're happy to put money on top of it because they're so excellent.
Right.
But too many times, and everybody in this room in here is a foodie. We go out quite often. But there's bad service, horrible service, and you still have to pay 15%. You put that on top of the 12%, it's 27%, almost 30% you're paying on your food.
Yeah, that's more than what you pay.
Okay? And so there's no automatic gratuity in the States, okay? And you watch those waiters, they are hustling, man. They want that money so badly. You feel like, well, I got to give these people a tip because they've done such a great job. So I want to get your take on it about, this proposal to remove it.
Reminds me of, that meme. I don't know if it's a meme or a quote or whatever, where, the minute like you set boundaries, the people that feel it are the ones who used to take advantage of it, and the people who make noise about it are the people that used to take advantage of you. That's what I feel like. I've been wanting that 15% gone. Yeah. Just because leave it to me. Okay? And you have to work a little harder or actually work. You have some people who do nothing. The bare, not even that. Not even the minimum.
Yeah, you're right.
You know how many
Not even
times
that.
I have to get up to go and look for my server because I'm like, you just basically took my order, you left, you didn't come back, bring water for the table, you didn't ask anything. We got to take a break real quick and we'll be back to finish this conversation. Hey, welcome back to Fields Live. I'm your host, Rogan Smith, along with my co-host, Sasha Lightborn, Candelaria Thompson, and of course, none other than Kendrick Williams on the board. We're having this conversation about this hotel strike vote that is set to take place this Thursday. The union says it's a slap in the face. Commentary has been all over the place. Candy, you were finishing off a point before the break
I don't like that. It's like a slap in the face.
I don't know.
I mean, don't, let's not pretend to be surprised or startled. Like, this is something that we've not been discussing for
1,000 years.
many years.
Yeah.
Many moons.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, yes, the people that take advantage of the 15%, I'm sure they will be upset.
Yeah. And, Sasha was making a point on the break saying, Bahamians are very charitable people. We love to tip.
We tip on tip.
We've tipped on tip for years. And, if the service is excellent, we just tip in.
Listen, yes, and I agree. We are that way to the point where when tourists come, Bahamians quick to call like a tourist cheap if they don't leave extra more than the 15% because we spoil them.
Yeah.
We've spoiled. I think we've
absolutely.
spoiled by leaving extra on top of the 15%.
Yeah. And so the union, so I have to read this because this is funny to me. So like I said, they were taking exception as well to the fact that they want to pay the Christmas bonus in the second week of January. But this is the thing that really got me. They said, in addition, the Christmas bonus will be tied to the hotel's performance and not guaranteed. Duh. If the hotel ain't performing well, how do you expect to get a Christmas bonus? I don't understand. That's an issue? Oh.
Why isn't the bonus tied to your individual performance, though? I mean, I get it because it's a different kind of industry, so I get it.
But I see where you're coming from, though.
But why isn't the bonus tied to your individual performance?
So if you're not performing well, you don't get a bonus.
No bonus.
It's supposed to be an inducement.
Which is an incentive for you to perform.
Is that someone peeking in our I don't know who that was. Is that our guest? Oh, by the way, our guest today is Loretta Butler Turner. Let's see if that's her. She could put her in the room. Yeah. But, Sasha, it should be tied to your individual performance. Yeah. And I guess things work a little differently there in hotel land.
Right, that's why I'm saying there's so many different... The hotel is such a dynamic kind of place. They have a lot of different special rules. So I'm sure... But I'm sure it can work. Like, where I work, you get an annual performance appraisal every quarter, and based on how you score, it's not even that difficult. It's out of 5. The higher you score, the better your bonus is going to be.
So if you
based on your performance.
Yeah.
So you could kind of almost calculate it yourself based on what you're going to get.
And it makes you want to work. You'd be like, oh, I've fallen behind now. This,
in the
this
hotel,
quarter,
it would be so easy because your clients just send them a survey. How was your room? How was your server? Which restaurant did you eat at? Did you get the name of the person who served you? Did they automatically it's so easy in the hotel.
You could on the TripAdvisor, you could say,
TripAdvisor. To
Kendrick was my server and he was extraordinary. You don't even have to sit down with that person face to face. At least on my job, we sit down with our supervisor one-on-one. Your clients can tell you, look, Mary came to my room at 12 o'clock every day. She was very professional. Yeah. She handled herself well. There was an instance where I didn't have ice and she went wherever she had to go and she bought ice from Alaska, and she was really, really good. If you're good, trust me, the people will tell them. I have relatives who work inside the hotel industry, and they'll tell you how guests will go out of their way to find the big boss because they say this person was extraordinary and I need to tell you that to your face. People will go out of their way to do it. Another thing they said, beyond the fact that the Christmas bonus will be tied to the hotel's performance, which is a no-brainer, they said. And it won't be guaranteed, nor will the traditional provision of Christmas ham and turkey by resorts for their staff be guaranteed.
Don't mess with the ham and turkey.
I blame this culture of ham and turkey.
Yeah, the culture.
Okay. This is a culture.
Yeah. Don't mess with the ham and turkey.
Don't mess with the ham and turkey.
Mess with the ham and turkey because what you getting ham and turkey for?
Take your bonus
and buy your ham and turkey.
$50 on your
you see, y'all have caused this problem. This is even on the political landscape. My MP and I'm sure Loretta Butler Turner could talk about this when she comes in. My MP ain't bring no ham and turkey.
No, yeah.
No vote.
1 year, this is when, oh Lord, what's the place? Fields on Gladstone Road was open. Yeah. I saw a senior politician in there. And I say, hey, how you doing? Me talking up. And he said, man, I ain't here. I'm spending $15,000 on ham and turkey. I say, what? Said, if I go to my constituents this Christmas and I don't have this ham and turkey, I out.
Yep.
Well, he was out anyway. They still gave him the boot.
You better have that ham and turkey here.
This is a silly culture we got here. I'm so sorry.
I hope it works so. I hope they do it because, I mean, customer service is so important, especially in the food industry that is so heavily connected to the hotel industry. It only makes perfect sense that if you give me good service, I should reward you. And if you don't give me good service, then you
get no reward.
It's like going to school. You did good on your test, you get an A. You did bad on your test, you get a D through a E or a F. Simple. It's simple maths. Simple maths.
It's very simple. Agreed. And I know all the hotel people could be mad.
Yes,
but
I mean,
they had to think about it. I mean, I guess they don't have to think about it in a different perspective because it's impacting their bottom line. But here's the thing: you can get more than that 15%.
Yeah.
You need to stop thinking small. You personally can get left a bigger tip than the 15%.
That's what I'm saying. Like you are limiting yourself because guess what? If if they continue with the 15% and I get
you will get the bare minimum of that.
bare minimum and or subpar customer service, that's all you can get.
And guess what?
That's
in many cases, they don't even get the full 15%. You know
That
what a lot
true.
of people do in the hotel and otherwise. They pool everything together and split it amongst who's on the floor for the night.
But that's how it
so
goes.
in many cases, you don't get the 15% anyway, and that's something that I learned just through kind of learning the business and being amongst people who run the business.
But they're going to get more. In some cases, they get more, though, because if you're pooling and let's just say you're dealing with a table and you have like a bunch of people and your bill is super high, then you still benefit in that regard.
But the person who works
but if I want to give you $50 and I want that $50 to be yours,
and I want it in your hand now,
and I want it in your hand now, that's not going to happen. So there are ways that I can benefit just as well as by pooling. I won't benefit from a pool, especially if I'm serving, let's say, like you said, a table of 10 or more. Everybody at that table may say, you know what? Everybody give $20. Let's give that to Susie or Mike or whatever.
Yeah. So the lesson for them, I would think, is just don't limit yourself to the 15% because you may be missing out on 30%. You may be missing out on 50%.
Number one business. Like, the people come in. We come in. The Bahamians, Mother's Day, Father's Day, we in there crunk live. We come in.
They want it.
So if you do the good service, just give great service.
Yeah.
That's a simple.
Just go to work and do your work.
It's no rocket science to this. We come in. We like food in the Bahamas. We come in. We like and we like hotel. Yeah, I be in the Bahama. Yeah, I be at
No,
Bahama. Yeah, I be at the Hilton. Yeah, girl. So we come in like we can stop coming. We come in.
Yeah, you get more than 15%. We got to go to Candy.
Oh, for true?
Yeah. Oh my God, I miss this song so much. Ed is gonna eliminate this when he comes back. I just want you to know.
I just said that.
Yeah,
I know.
let's go on.
Oh, for sure. Because I was getting sick of the song too, though.
You wanted to change it to "I Want Candy" or something different?
No.
You were getting sick of that song.
You could play "Candy Shop" by 50 Cent. Let's take it
to the candy shop.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a little too risque.
Wow. That'll change it.
That'd be like, all the fellas tuning in there.
Well, what kind of show is this? What's she talking about? Yeah. Well, no, I wanted to continue the conversation.
Yeah.
Well, did we even bring it up? Well, small businesses. And I guess the definition is small business, right? So this past weekend, I attended the Pro Headshot brand masterclass, and they had, the photo shoot, your pro shot on the second day. And let me tell you, I was super impressed. Yes, I talking about Sasha Brother. So it was hosted. So Sherrod Lightbourne and his wife Tanya Williams. Well, that's his. Tanya Williams Lightbourne is her brand. And they are a crazy team. And they hosted the Pro Headshot brand masterclass on branding. And for those who wanted to get their professional headshots done, that was on the second day. Let me tell you, from the venue, from I got there, because the masterclass it was an all-day workshop, so from 9 to 5. And for me, sometimes I'm like, oh goodness, going to sit down all day does just. Right. I was like, boy, I don't know.
You thought it was going to be, boring?
Not that I thought it was going to be boring, but I know sometimes.
My whole Saturday.
Right,
That's what
I'd given up my whole Saturday, but I was excited, right? But I got there from check-in to just the overall decor and the team that, service, and it was just, I mean, the atmosphere was just great. And they had a panel of speakers. So there are some speakers that they had their own individual presentation. And let me tell you, when I blinked, Sherrod was the keynote speaker, and he came on in the afternoon. When I blinked, literally the whole, like, you did not feel it. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't feel the length of, the day, because it was so interactive, and I was just so impressed with just the whole production of it all. And I wanted to say, with small businesses, especially, how we were talking about Bahamians, boy, we are a tough crowd. We are tough, right? And not only that, like, when you're signing up for these types of events, sometimes you can't help it to think like, oh, Lord, like, nah, this could be what kind of event is this going to be? Like, is this going to be like, top notch, like how they are advertising it? And I'm not saying that this is what I thought about this particular event, but
you just wanted to make sure that what was
this
promised.
To start late, or is this going to be value for my money and all this other stuff? And so, a lot of Bahamians don't like to spend money on Bahamians. Right. That's the truth. Yep. And I mean, this event, I think it should be like just a model for other people that want to, conduct certain things like this. I just was just so impressed.
There.
Yeah,
it started in an old studio right down here. Town.
Yeah.
So I guess
agreed,
the lesson is, as a small business, you have to grow.
Yes.
And as a small business, you take
So they had the master class before that?
No, this is the first time he did the master class.
Yeah,
he just did the pro shots.
He
did. He started downtown, and then he went to what's this place?
InQ Desk.
And then he evolved to SLS.
Right.
But I mean, it was a process.
Yeah.
Over years and years and years. And I think that's one thing that we don't.
That it is a journey. And
a lot
of
like
people
it can't be instant. Like everyone,
right.
and not to knock it, but I'm gonna say it. Everyone just can't go to a Bahama and have a conference.
No.
Everyone just can't go to a big to do and have a big to do the first go around. And you know what that reminds me of? The Little Ping Party. Mm-hmm. She started out like right here.
Yeah.
Right here.
On the Ministry of
Education lawn. And now she's in a hotel and like people are knocking on her door every December, the first Saturday in December. Loads of women flock to, the Little Ping Party. It's a process.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just want to not, pass on.
I'm happy you brought that up, because let me tell you why. When we start these small businesses, people just think, okay, well, I'm just going to operate on a local, national level. But no matter where, because I've known Sherrod, I went to college. We were in COB around the same time. He's always had, this.
It's a mindset.
It's a mindset. And so no matter where he hosted
Precisely.
his event, it didn't, it wasn't as if, his
mindset wasn't suited to just where he was.
Yeah, it was bigger than where
his
he
circumstances.
Was. And so I think that was, you should take a page out of his book, or, people that do that. Like when you start on these ventures, like it's almost like you have to operate, or you have to think on a global, international level, regardless of whether or not, or whether, your clients come from our local.
Right.
You should still treat them as if, okay, well, this is a global stage.
Can I say something to that point? And you know what I said before the show started. We were having the conversation about these events that take place, and they say we're starting at 5 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
And then they start at 7 o'clock, and we're supposed to be okay with that. You need to be operating, I don't even have to say international. It's sad that we also use our word international. You should be operating on a professional standard.
Yeah, just
you be professional.
This is basic.
This ain't international. Right? You said your event starts at a certain time. Well, damn it, let it start at a certain time.
Yeah.
My whole schedule around.
I set my schedule around precisely. To Sasha's point, you don't just go from A to Z real quick. It's a gradual process. And to your point, it is a mindset. Sometimes people say, well, I'm in this little place, and so ain't nobody really taking it seriously. You have to take it seriously because you don't know who is inside that spot in that space with you. And I think too, companies and there's a small mindset, and it doesn't just happen with small business owners. It happens even with big business owners. Sometimes they take the Bahamian audience for granted.
Yes.
They look at us as less than. Oh, if there's an international component, it's supposed to be professional. Let's start on time. Let's do this. Let's do that. But when it's the Bahamians, it's a problem.
Right.
And I absolutely detest it.
It's like, well, I attended another event last week. And I could say it. It was Own Talks. And I was excited because, on Instagram, they showing there was a speaker that I have seen on Instagram, and I was like, oh, wow, they're coming here. That's cool. I'm going to go check it out. Now, while overall the event was good, it was great. The speakers were great. The whole setup was really nice. And very well attended. Two of my pet peeves.
Yeah.
For that evening was if you're on that level, your event is starting at 7. Start at 7. It started almost 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
This is after already a long day of work.
Right.
Yeah.
I already don't live in the West.
Yeah.
And
you got to come from the East.
Yes, I made a sacrifice to come out here, and so that really that got my that grinded my gears. Because I am a stickler for time. People don't value time.
Yeah.
And it's not like people think that it's not a personal thing to you. No, it's kind of disrespectful because you are valuing you are valuing your time more than mine.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But anyway,
so that was the first thing. What was the other issue?
So well, I don't even know how to bring this up, and this is not because I don't think that I don't agree with things like this, but when I think about Owen Talks, I thought I think about more. I know you're catering to the local community, but I think big. I think global. I think international. I think you brought in international speakers for this event, and I know. We are nationally, we're a very religious nation. Christian nation. But I don't know if every single event needs to be opened up with a prayer. Well, I mean, I'm sure people are going to feel some type of way about that. And they're not going to agree with me, and that's fine. That's fine. But not only that, you have the person who is praying literally standing in front of these international people, talking about, let's stop the bloodshed in the streets. I think that kind of thing is inappropriate for that type of event.
I want to talk about that. We got to take a quick break here on Ed Fields Live, but I want to talk about that. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Ed Fields Live. Your host, Rogan Smith, here, along with Sasha Lightbourne and Candelaria Thompson. We got 3 more minutes because we have our guest is Loretta Butler Turner. We're going to have a good conversation about what she's been up to and, of course, her future in politics. So you'll want to stay for that. But, Candy.
You wanted to comment on my last comment.
Your last point
with
about
the prayer.
Yeah, the prayer. And Ed and I have had this conversation ad nauseum on this show. I know that we are a self-professed Christian nation.
Yeah.
And I subscribe to Christianity. I love Jesus. But I've always had a fundamental problem with us opening up a non-religious event with a prayer.
Exactly.
Okay? I have no problem if it's a religious event and people are coming there for that. But I think when we have these public events, it's so hard to say. I wanted to say I don't think it's necessary, but then you have your religious zealots that say, oh, God is always necessary.
It's always necessary.
That's not what it's about. I'm just talking about the fact that you have a mixed audience, and that's not even international. You might have people who just subscribe to different things or not at all.
Exactly.
And I just get to the business at hand. You want to pray for the event prior? Do that.
Right.
And then let's just get into the the business at hand, you know?
But then not only that, like, let's stay on topic.
On message. And,
on
and,
message.
and don't talk about the bloodshed in the Bahamas when you're in the front. Now, this is where it gets weird. And in the front of your international guests.
I wanted to crawl under my chair.
Yeah.
When he said, I was like, okay, that's different. That's, I don't know if that should be
different. That's inappropriate.
Said right now. Yeah. But hey, could you please make him stop?
Perhaps if it were a crime forum, it'd be appropriate.
Right.
Anyway, any final words? We got to go. But
yeah, no, I would just advice for entrepreneurs, small business. I've been seeing a lot of innovative entrepreneurs out here just doing the thing and just growing and thriving. And I just implore you to think, yes, be professional. Let me eliminate international.
Yeah, be professional.
Just continue to be professional. And, that'll just take you everywhere and so far.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it was great chatting with you, Candelaria.
Thank you, darling.
Fantastic. We'll see you again next Monday, eh?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. Welcome back to Ed Fields Live. I'm your host, Rogan Smith, here with Sasha Lightbourne, and our wonderful guest is in studio, none other than Loretta Butler Turner. You're doing the face for.
Feels like old times, eh? Old times. Let's interview her, Rogan.
Yes, back in the day.
Back in the day.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Good afternoon, or evening, rather.
Yes, it's been a long time.
Yes, the last time I was here, you were not here.
I know.
Looks like we've traded places.
Yeah, Ed's gone.
Absolutely.
How's it been going on your side of the world?
Wonderful, actually. Right here in New Providence. It's lovely.
Yeah.
Thank
Living
you.
Your best life?
I'm definitely trying to. Definitely attempting to do that.
Yeah. So we're going to have a conversation, obviously, about your political future, your career thus far, and we want you to weigh in as well on some hot button issues, things that are happening in the country. So we'll have a good little conversation. And we keep it really light around here, so feel free to kick off your shoes. One of the first things I wanted to talk about, I don't know if you had a chance to read it, but I wanted to get your take because it's created so much controversy in the past few hours. This hotel workers in a strike ballot. I don't know if you had a chance to read that. On Thursday, they're going to be taking a strike ballot because there's a proposal to eliminate the 15% gratuity. And so Bahamians of all walks of life are weighing in on that and what they think about this whole proposal. I wanted to get your take.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, certainly I have, in living my best life, I certainly have been avoiding a lot of the media, but it's definitely something that has crossed my radar, and I haven't really looked at it, but I know that it's something that it's going to totally impact thousands of people, and I think at the end of the day, even if it is something that the government is considering, it's not something that you can do immediately. You certainly would have to look at it. There are many persons who, whether it's in the hotel industry or elsewhere, that rely primarily on the tips for the majority of their income, and that based on the fact that they make their commitments based on that level of income. The flip side would always be, if you don't have a built-in gratuity, people will probably get more money. We don't know because it hasn't been tested in this market in recent times, and I think the only barometer that we have for that, certainly in this particular market, would be the all-inclusives, and, we'd have to compare to see how workers in that part of hospitality industry certainly lines up. But, I also believe that, when you're going to make such a drastic change to the lives and the income of people, this should have been something that was not just thrown at these workers from left field. If this was your proposal, then certainly this should have been a part of your political platform so that people can truly be aware of what they're voting for. I believe that, it seems to me that the government of today seems to be working from a very ad hoc position. Whatever seems to come across their radar, they go and they deal with it or they try to react to it. That is not the best way to govern, especially when you're dealing with the lives of people. And most of the people that work in the hotel industry, as you well know, they are not of the higher socioeconomic background that these politicians are that are making the rules and laws are from. And so I think it's going to be a very difficult sell for the government, and I think it definitely demonstrates a lack of ability to communicate effectively with the people.
But we've had this conversation for years. This isn't a new thing. Yes, I do accept your point about, the government perhaps should have said that this was a part of their plan. We know why no government is going to do that, or any party is going to do that. But there have been so many Bahamians who have expressed displeasure with this 15% because, yes, there are people who build their livelihoods on it, but at the same time, they give poor service. And this is not everybody in the hotel industry, but they do give poor service to the Bahamian public. Individuals like you, me, Sasha, Kendrick, we go out to eat. And because they have that cushion, that automatic gratuity, they don't give the level of service that is needed or required. And so, in a sense, it makes our Bahamian people a bit lazy.
And that's the flip side of the argument that I alluded to. And I truly understand that. But, there are other ways of dealing with it as well. It has been something that has been the established norm, and it's been going on for so long. How do you raise the service of our people, not just in the hospitality industry?
Agreed.
You look at the government workers, many in the public sector.
Civil service, yeah.
They are getting a set salary, and I'm not saying all of them, but many times you go into a public office and you're getting poor service, but these people are getting paid their money at the end of the day. So how do you actually carve out this niche of which you have no control, and you're not controlling the people that you do have control over to ensure? See, the government has government has got to set the standard. If you want to raise the bar on service, then begin with the people that are being paid by the public purse.
Right.
Let's begin by starting with the public sector, and let's make sure that service becomes excellent there.
Yeah.
It is something that you would have to start doing straight across the board by setting the example.
We've had so many politicians come through in this studio anyway, paying lip service to that very same thing, talking about the challenges that exist in the civil service. And some people have solutions, some don't. They just seem like they know it's a problem, but there's nothing that they can do. If you had a suggestion,
or they're afraid to touch it.
Or they're afraid to touch it. That's exactly a good point, because they don't want to jeopardize chances at the polls when the elections come up.
If they're afraid to touch it when it comes to the public service, then why are they going into the private domain to deal with something like that? When a person becomes engaged, first of all, labor law is very simple. When a person is engaged for a certain amount of money, you cannot, in all consciousness and fairness, after engagement, then remove from them what they were promised. Okay, we know that gratuities are something that may not have a set value each day, each week, each month. But a part of your engagement is that you're getting a base salary plus this 15%. How do you, as a government, then determine that you're going to intervene in the private sector and tell these people, okay, so you don't have to give your workers 15% anymore, or you don't have to give them this, or you don't have to give them that? That is something, in my estimation, truly, that if it was going to be dealt with, should not be a government stand. It has to be something. These people have representatives that they pay, and they are their union leaders. So if this is something that the hotel industry, the hospitality industry wants to do, it is not the government's place to intervene. It is the place of the hotel owners, employers, to sit down with the union and propose what is needed. And that, in and of itself is really the right way to go about it. I do not know. I have not followed this argument. I have not followed this. I'm speaking off the top of my head. I do not know if this is something the government itself is proposing, whether this is something that the hotel employers are proposing. But I do maintain that you cannot take away from a people what they deemed to be a part of their engagement package.
Right. So one of the phrases I caught wind of what you said earlier was the government of the day seems to be operating in an ad hoc fashion. I want to get your take on the FNM's performance in government thus far. It's only been a couple of years, but I think at this point now things are clear enough where you can make an objective assessment of how they've been doing.
Well, I don't know if anyone is truly going to think that my thoughts are objective. I'm very happy to give my, to weigh in a little bit on what I feel. But obviously, very early in the game, I thought they'd made some, serious missteps. I thought that the articulation of what was said on the campaign trail and what was suggested by no less a person than the Prime Minister himself, when I saw backtracking and let me give you an example, case in point. Because, it's very good to speak in a void and not have evidence to substantiate what you're saying. For example, the Prime Minister said that he will be the CEO of the board of ministers, meaning that he would not hold a portfolio so that he can effectively ensure that all of his ministers were performing and carrying out their jobs. And you would realize that one of the first things was you had a junior minister of state who, without portfolio, became the Minister for National Insurance. Now, we know that if there's a minister of state and there is no substantive minister, then obviously the substantive minister would have to be the Prime Minister. Yeah. So, that for me clearly was like, okay, so how do we make head and tail of this? And then you look at it, and then later on he backtracks and he then reinstates this man as the substantive minister. That's one thing. You also look at the fact that they said immediately, when we were in opposition, there were only 9 of us, and we fought vociferously. We fought and we said we would never, ever implement VAT, and it was not something we should do. And their first budget, they turned around and they increased VAT up, substantially. So, that was a huge blow to the Bahamian people who were misled, thinking that, there was going to be some type of reprieve. You look at the sloppy way in which these litigations have taken place with regards to ministers and and how they may have conducted themselves, and questions arising, and the judiciary wondering about interference. So, for me, I think these are not amateur mistakes. These are glaring, blatant mistakes. And you have in your cabinet, you have persons that would have served in cabinet before, so it's not a brand new cabinet. You have an attorney general who has held a position in cabinet from 1992, I imagine, 97. You've got Desmond Bannister, who has served before. You've got Brent Simonet. And, we can go on about the persons that actually have served. And to see these really outrageous things that are going on in the government today, and the fact that there is so much that we can actually point our fingers at, you wonder if, in fact, this government truly had a plan to move this country forward. And that is why I said, they seem to be very ad hoc in their approach. From day to day, you do not know what is coming out of the pipeline. You see rushed legislation. You see things that are left that we understand were supposed to be left in committee so there could be further discussion. And then at the end of the day, it's not left in committee. It's passed and moved on to the Senate. And so, it's a lot of duplicitous flip-flopping by this government.
Have they done anything good?
Let's see. I think that, in all fairness, I can't say that they have been proactively involved in doing a lot of good. We do know that tourism figures are up, but, there were a lot of circumstances that created that. We had the hurricanes that created great disaster in the Southern Caribbean. So, we had a huge influx for 2 years in a row from the boaters who could not go down to the southern part of the Caribbean where they used to go. You had lots of hotels lost in Puerto Rico and other contributing areas. And then, of course, you had Bahar Mar, which is a brand new, very large product that came online, which was something, once again, Hubert Minnis was totally against. But it has created a lot of buzz in the travel world. And then to top it off, the United States of America, our biggest tourism capture market, they have been actually experiencing quite an upswing in their economic situation, which translates. Now, is that something that we've done directly? I don't know. I cannot point to any particular campaign or any initiative. I could be wrong, and I stand to be corrected. But I'd love to know.
Do you think circumstances have
circumstances
led to the
has really added to that? I'll tell you what really bothers me when we look at the crime today, and we constantly are bombarded saying that crime is down, but yet you look at crimes like rape, which are up, and then you look at the amount of crimes involving police officers, whatever the circumstances are, that where we have unanswered questions, and you wonder, are you protecting yourself now from just the criminals? I don't know, because I don't know what the circumstances are, but people still do not feel safe in this environment.
You can answer that, though, because you've sat in the opposition seat, you've sat in a leadership seat, and leadership is different from opposition. And there were certain circumstances that also led to what may be perceived as this particular government not doing good. So my question is, there are so many different things that you meet when you become the leading party. Are you giving them a fair shake?
I think to be a very good opposition means to be knowledgeable. There are things that you may become aware of once you arrive in that position. But you cannot continue 2 years out to continue to say we're doing this because, we're doing that because. The first year, definitely, you may have a budget that's already, because it was so close to budget time, you can say, okay, well, with this budget period, this is not truly our budget, this is not our plan, and so we're going to move forward because of the tight time frame in which we find ourselves. But by year 2, you are supposed to be into your stride and implementing all of your plans in your budget and everything else. You are supposed to be totally familiar with what's going on in the country. How do you say, okay, so the PLP were there and we didn't know, but we did not name a Chief Justice for X amount of time? I mean, these are the things that you're talking interfering with the carriage of justice. When there is not a Chief Justice and it's delayed for such a long period of time with no explanation, and you're saying that this is something that I'm probably being hard on, I don't think so. It takes a decision. One must act. Even if you make a mistake, you must make a decision.
I have to ask this question before we take the break, Kendrick, but you spoke earlier about the fact that Dr. Minnis was so vehemently opposed to increasing VAT. He was opposed to VAT initially, and then of course we increased the rate. You have people like Frederick McAlpine who have been very outspoken against this very same thing, and he's basically become a pariah in the party. What do you make about individuals like a Frederick McAlpine who says, you know what, we stood for something and I'm sticking to that?
I think that you have to look at the system of governance. And the system of governance obviously needs work. But when you have such a large majority, to have effective governance, you also have to have effective opposition. Opposition does not always come in the capacity as the opposing the official, political side. When you have a backbencher like a Frederick McAlpine or any other backbencher that does not hold a substantive position in your government, then of course you understand that in the Westminster system of governance, a backbencher has the right constitutionally to stand up and say this is not something I agree with. Is it out of the norm? No, it's not. If you look at the mother country where we are modeled after, you will see in Great Britain that even on the governing side there are dissenting voices. If you talk about democracy and you truly want to have democracy, then of course you've got to understand that democracy also works not just in the House of Parliament, but it should also be working in your organization. Hence, the majority will rule, but the minority still has their say.
Absolutely. We're going to take a break here on Ed Fields Live. We'll be right back with Loretta Butler-Turner. Welcome back to Ed Fields Live. I'm your host, Rogan Smith, here with Sasha Lightbourne, and Kendrick Williams is on the board. We're here with former leader of the opposition, Loretta Butler-Turner. And Sasha, you had a question. You wanted to piggyback on the question I asked about the Frederick McAlpine dissenting with his party.
I guess my question is hypothetical, but I'm interested to find out your view, Mrs. Turner. If you were leader, and not just him, because there's been him, there's been Travis Robinson. There's been those two have been the majority and been sticking by the way that they feel and the way that they feel.
Did
that
Reese
they're
speak out?
Yeah, I think he did on one situation. And so if you were leader of the F&M today, and you had a Frederick McAlpine or a Travis Robinson
in your ranks,
and they disagreed openly on not just in Parliament, but also outside of Parliament where there is no privilege, and they spoke about you almost in a vicious way because of the fact that VAT went up, and I was part of the VAT implementation team, so I have insight over the average Bahamian, so I know it could not decrease. Our country would crumble if it decreased. So notwithstanding that, how would you, if you were a leader of the F&M today and these two, or anyone, had a dissenting view?
That's a very hypothetical situation, but there were two things you said there that I noted with interest. First of all, you noted the dissent regarding that and their dissent. Then you said outside of Parliament they've been, I guess, personal in their attacks. Okay, so there we have it. I want to differentiate between the two of those. Okay. First of all, when you are in a political position, you represent the interest of the people who elected you, and also the party of which you're a part of vehicle. I shouldn't say never. If you have an issue with the movement of a piece of legislation, I would want to know what precipitated that. Did I give my team a heads up prior to this legislation? And, that is what caucusing is about. Now, you know that when laws and policies are set, they're set at the cabinet level. That means McAlpine or anybody else who's a backbencher. And I don't want to use personalities because it really becomes more personality driven as opposed to having a subjective discussion. So let's talk about this objectively. I think that certainly as the leader of any team, when you're going to execute a play, you want to apprise your team of it so that everyone on the team is aware. If they dissent, then certainly during your caucusing, that is when they should have demonstrated their dissent and given you a heads up that, hey, I can't be a part of this, and that is the case. That in and of itself is very healthy for democracy. The personal attacks that would have come on because of your actions, well, that's questionable. Because remember now, it is because of that political vehicle that you were afforded the opportunity to actually go and represent those people who you now represent. So you've got to also be very careful in crafting your arguments. And then you have to question what is actually the driving force if somebody is outside of Parliament and still carrying on about your personality or whatever the case may be. Is there an underlying driving force to try to undermine your position? So those are the sort of things that I would be looking at. But holistically, from the perspective of the VAT, I would have wanted to know that I can go to my constituents, discuss the reasons why my government is doing this, be able to represent their views, and come back and say, you know what, this is what my government is doing, but my people are not supportive of this, and so I cannot support this. And that's how it should be done.
Yeah,
I think there's a great point there. And the difference in the personality we spoke of, the way that you said that just now was not the way that it was said coming from another person. So I think a lot of people too have a problem with the manner in the delivery.
Yeah.
Because you just said it beautifully with and it wouldn't be offensive.
Right.
So sometimes, like we've heard our grandmothers, great grandmothers, it's not what you say,
how you say it,
but how you say it.
Absolutely.
And no one can fault. Listen. Yes, you're a part of an organization, right? But at the end of the day, you're also there because the constituents put you there. So it's always a difficult balancing act. You sat in cabinet before. I'm sure there are things that may have come up when you sat that may have been difficult to explain to your Long Island constituents. But, it's the delivery. I don't typically like talking about personalities, but I am curious to know what your relationship is like with Dr. Eurythminis today.
I don't have a relationship with as far as I know, right now with any politician. You know?
Are you cordial when you see each other? Do you speak to each other when you?
I don't.
in the same
I do not think that we move in the same circles.
Oh.
So,
I actually, I'm a gardener.
are you gardening?
Yeah, I'm a gardener. I don't.
But you've been strategic.
I don't see very many people outside of my garden. I don't see very many people outside of the consulting work that I do. I'm very strategic in where I go. As you know, I've avoided radio as well. The last time I was here, it was very nice, very conversational, but it was still a little early in the game. I don't have any plans to get back into politics,
I'm gonna
and
ask.
so quite frankly, I just am going to give it to you the way I see it as an individual, a private citizen.
Why?
Yeah, I mean, after I would have
So much blood, sweat, and tears. And you've done TV interviews. I've seen them come to your house. I've seen the orchids on the table. They've been to your house.
Yes.
And what I've noticed about these particular interviews is that every now and then they come.
But it's been very, very seldom. There was a time when I did interviews very regularly. And because obviously I wasn't elected. So, I mean, it wasn't a matter of choice.
Right.
I was kicked out of politics. So why should I be out there fighting a battle that I'm not a part of?
But there's no interest. I mean, lots of people have been kicked out of politics. Leslie Miller was kicked out of politics. They fired him. And he said, you know what, this is still inside of my heart and I want to go back to the people and I'll try again. I mean, it happens to many politicians. Is it just for you? It's beyond being kicked out, and you just see yourself evolving into something different, or what is it?
You gave so much hope to so many women.
I really I introspected a lot after everything that happened. I realized that 5 years in opposition, and really just. And then there was 5 years prior to that in government, and then there was 5 years prior to that where I hadn't actually won anything, but I left private sector and went to work full time with my party. So that's about 14, 15 years giving to your political endeavors. And I think that for me, you have to look very much at the gender issue and how it's perceived in the Bahamas. And I've learned one thing, that you can be as good as anybody else or even better, and your best is never good enough in the Bahamas as a woman. They would generally discard you as being a co-star, right, or a supporting actor, as opposed to being the leading role. So
you were so close.
I don't know that there is I don't know that there's a yearning in the Bahamas for and I guess what I'm saying is I'm not sure that they're ready for strong women.
I hear that quite often, right? And I guess you're talking about this in the perspective of politics, because I always hear people ask this question: is the Bahamas ready for female leadership? Is the Bahamas ready for a woman to lead? We lead households, we lead in so many different businesses, in the medical profession, legally we have leaders who are female, and we accept those things, but for some reason it seems to be very different with politics, where you have this male political class that just is not bent on sharing power, and Bahamians who just don't see it.
Well, outside of our Constitution, which makes us unequal citizens, let's not even broach that. Let's look at the constitutions of the political parties, and let's see how they're made up, because that's the only way outside of the parliamentary system that we use where a woman can ascend. And obviously, we used the political system in 2017, I think it was 2016. It was when the majority of elected opposition officers ousted the then leader of the opposition, and that was a parliamentary Westminster-based move. Okay? So people didn't agree with it because they didn't support us. But at the end of the day, let us look at the makeup of the political parties and their constitutions. They generally are very similar in nature, whether it's the PLP, the FNM, the DNA, all hail the great leader. Once you're the leader, whether you were put there, whether you were elected there, whatever, we don't change leaders. We can't challenge leaders. And, over the years, you've had people challenge leadership in all parties. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, at a convention, the same thing has happened in every political organization. Yeah. The same person that was challenged comes out as the leader at the end of the day. PLP, FNM, even the DNA. And so I think that, when we get serious about understanding our system of governance, we will take, and my advice to the PLP in opposition, now's the time to clean house and change up your party constitution. Make it more accessible to people. Don't have this thing where the leader has so much power. See, it sort of reflects our general constitution, where in fact, once you ascend to the position of prime minister, the office of prime minister in the Bahamas today has so much power. I'm not talking about the individual. I'm talking about the office itself of prime minister, has so much. And that is reflected in the political organizations, whether it's, when Pindling did the PLP and then the UBP was formed and all the other parties that sort of came along. They have no imagination to truly redevelop and redesign a constitution that becomes more inclusive of the people that are voting. I'll use the FNM, for example. You have 400 people out of a population of, let's say, 300,000 people that determine who's going to be the prime minister, to determine who's going to be the leader of a party.
And potentially the prime minister.
Absolutely. And in our constitution, if you're the leader of the party and your party wins enough seats, you become the prime minister.
Absolutely.
So there's, once again, are we going to look at our constitution to become a republic where parties are elected and then leaders are elected? Right. All of these things, as a developing, growing country that's moving into its 50th year of maturity, we need to really look at it and determine if that is something that we want to do. Outside of that, we're going to continue to have this back and forth, I predict, between these two dinosaur parties, the FNM and the PLP, and the pendulum will probably continue to swing from one, as people would say, which one is the lesser of two evils. That should not be your choice when you're going to make a decision for governance.
Voting against a party rather than voting for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, people will tell you, we had to get rid of the PLP, and that type of thing. There has got to be more to your 5-year privilege of voting than saying, well, I just voted to get rid of the other one.
Right. Mrs. Butler-Turner, during the last election, and I have to say this, I don't know how you held your composure, because as a female in this country, I heard so many incredibly nasty, vicious, disgusting things said. And it wasn't even about your politics. It almost was just because you're a woman daring to challenge a system, daring to lead this country. And I used to say to myself, I don't even want to be this woman when she goes home at night. What type of impact did that have on you personally and your family members who had to witness it? You have children.
Well, that's, personally, I've learned that, I had a lot of advisors in my lifetime, whether, growing up as a child in the shadows of my grandfather, or whether it was strong men like my father, my uncles, and of course my maternal side of my family, my grandmothers, my mother, those people. One thing I've learned in life is that when people cannot ridicule you on fact, they will tend to become very personal. And of course, we live in environments where people love to have nice juicy tidbits of lies and stuff. And so you understand that. So that's more a reflection of the individuals for me. That's more a reflection of the individuals and their mental state as opposed to a reflection on me. But I'll tell you, the most difficult part of it was not the way that I dealt with it, but the way it actually affects my own family. family.
Right.
You know, I do have adult children. I have a husband, very, very supportive, always been supportive of me. And then, of course, I have extended family members. And, you know, for them to know me and what I stand for and the values that I instill in them and that we adhere to, it's very difficult to sort of listen and hearing people do these things or say these things. I mean, when I hear, well, you know, there's been so many things. There's no need to repeat those.
Right.
But, you know, for my family, it's been very hard. It's been a rough time. And the fact that, you know, politics becomes almost isolation. You become almost isolated in politics, away from your family because you're constantly with other people.
Sure.
I think that was also very, very hard. So when I look at my life today and, you know, how very relaxed I am and how wonderful it is to see the rewards of gardening, you realize that there are some things that you can put lots of effort into and you're rewarded for.
Yeah.
To you, well, not to you. If you could do it again, if God said, you know what, Loretta, let's start over, would you? Would you still go through the 15-year political process?
I think that I live my life, and I'm sure you would have heard me say this on many occasions. One, I do not live with regrets.
Okay.
I always feel that if I've done something, it's something that I've truly planned to do. I also realize that when I make a decision to do something where there's a competition, you're either going to win or you're going to
make up
lose.
your mind about that.
And, you know, someone said to me this morning who called me, they said, you know, when you left Long Island, I remember you asking me particularly afterwards, do I owe you anything? He said, you didn't even leave here leaving any bills behind or anything like that. And I said, so what are you saying to me? He said, you just carried yourself off in dignity. I either was going to win or I was going to lose. And at the end of the day, you've got to realize that it's a 50-50 chance. I believe that for me, when I first determined that I would get into politics, I had a very real passion, thinking that, you know, all I need to do is get elected for my people and I can be such a change. Mm-hmm. And then you realize that once you get elected, you're a part of a machinery that in fact does not always align with your values, or your thoughts do not always align with theirs. And so, you know, I'll give you a case in point. The first time that I was actually elected to Parliament was in 2007 under Hubert Ingram. And, you know, I try not to make many promises. Obviously, we had a party manifest. And, of course, that was our guideline for how what our party would do in office. But on a community level, on a constituency level, I tried not to make promises that I thought were unreasonable. And I did make, in fact, 2 promises to the people of Montague. Yeah. And that was, I will finally deal with the fish vendors, the traffic congestion, and the Montague thing. Remember when the cars used to stop in the middle of the road, and at 5 o'clock, traffic stopped because boats were trying to get across the ramp? Okay. So I just feel that when I commit to something, whether I'm a part of the political organization or not, I've got to deliver. And I remember saying, well, you know, I promised Montague that I'm going to do this, because we had like several MPs before who said they were going to do it, and it didn't happen. And they were like, well, we don't have any money for that. So I said, okay, fair enough. We have no money for that. I am the MP. I'm the one that people are looking to. I made the promise. Yes, maybe it wasn't in the F&M's manifesto. How am I going to go about doing this? You know what I did? I went out. I corralled all of the businesses in the Montague area, the citizens in the area, and I said to them, listen, we have got to address this issue because it certainly affects more than you. Will you guys be interested in being a part of this committee so that we can start getting plans? Diane Phillips came on board.
Ed was on that.
Ed Fields was on that. Mm-hmm. You know, we had Chippy Chipman from Ernst & Young at that time. We had Family Guardian on board. We had Diane Simonet on board, Malcolm McKay. We had Davidson Hepburn. We had a group of people that wanted to see this happen.
It forced you to be creative.
It forced us to be creative because we had no money. And once we got Diane Phillips on board as a PR person, she went out and did a lot of legwork, took all the photographs of the awful condition of the water down there, the people without running water, the fish, the flies, everything. And, of course, the traffic congestion. And do you know, I think because Ed Fields became a part of it, Kersner, after we started having town meetings, Kersner made the money available for us to rehabilitate the beach of Montague. That was the impetus that then got my government to say, okay, we're going to work with this. And we then got the road works done. And so today, you get a free flow of traffic from Montague because what this entailed, in addition to putting a nice parking area and everything for the fish vendors there, a nice recreational park for the Montague people there. We also dealt with the junctions at Newgate Road, which goes to Blair, Johnson Road, and also Fox Hill, which was all then a part of my Montague. And so you had turning lanes so you can have continued flow. So my point is this. Do I regret and would I do it again? I would do everything I've ever done before because when I commit to something, I fully commit to it. If I do not commit to it, it's because I cannot give 100%.
We have 2 more minutes on the show.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like I've talked too much.
No, you've talked. It's been perfect. Trust me. You know, I have to ask this question. We see the world shifting in a way where women are now demanding so much more respect. They're demanding to be heard. They're demanding to have a place at the table. And we have women in this country who want to step up in politics. We have Arinthia Komalafi, who is now the leader of the Democratic National Alliance, and so many other women who probably will offer themselves for election in the upcoming general election. How do these women succeed in politics? Now, people might think, well, how are you asking Loretta Butler Turner, who was defeated? But she has had a great deal of success in her time in politics, and you have taken the brunt of a lot of negative backlash from a lot of people. How do they then maneuver, or how do they move as they enter this political sphere?
That's a good question. I think first and foremost, politics for me was never a get-rich-quick thing. I think many people go into politics of the view thinking that okay, I haven't succeeded in other areas. Let me go here because I think I can make a good living here. That's the first thing. If that's your driving force, stay out of politics. Yeah. Okay, because as far as I'm concerned, unless you're going to do something that's totally illegal and corrupt, you're not going to get rich in politics. You have to have a passion for your country. You've got to want to be the change. You know, if you can leave the world a better place than you found it, and you believe that, then of course I think you can be successful. And there are different levels of success. For me, no, I did not succeed in the leadership role. But, you know, also at the end of the day, not everyone's aspiring to be leader of a political party. But if a female or a male, and I don't think we should make it gender-based. I think that too often we get caught up in this argument of, oh, well, it's a female or it's a male. I tell them, I said, really, if you're looking for, excuse my language, if you're looking for balls, women have bigger balls because they're right up here. We just carry ours up top, So at the end of the day, I don't think that we should ever preface our questions about females and males. I think it's about the ability and those people that truly want to serve that will be most successful.
That's a good point to end. It's been a pleasure. It's over. An hour went fast, right?
You gotta bring me back because I have more questions. Could be an hour for the full 2 hours.
An hour and a half is the show, so we can have it for extra 30 minutes?
Yeah. Tell Ed I said, Ed will do that for me.
Okay, no problem. So we'll start at 5.
Do that for me.
Plenty questions.
If she'll come back. If she's agree to come back.
You see what color she's wearing and you see what color you're wearing?
I talked to her about her color.
No, I just want to say, do you see how defensive she was? But you know what? It's okay.
Neutral. This is neutral.
Okay because
I wasn't defensive.
Well, I think you took issue maybe with McAlpine and blah 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 blah. But I think that you're very defensive of that color, and it's coincidental she's wearing green. You notice I'm always very careful what color I wear these days.
Green is about the earth.
This was clean.
Green is about the earth.
But I will say this: from I came into journalism to now, I will say that you are probably one of the, for me personally, most respected, most well-spoken, one of the most respected and most well-spoken politicians that I've ever had to deal with.
Well, thank you.
And green is for the earth and for your garden. So think about it that way.
And blue is for life.
There you go. Good point.
And blue is my favorite color.
Good place to end on. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all so much. I'm so glad. I talk so much.
No, you didn't. This is good.
And Sasha, I haven't seen you since you won your award.
But we got to go. But thank you so much. We'll see you guys on Thursday.